The mist clung to the dense forest, veiling the towering pine trees like whispers of untold secrets. The air was thick with the earthy scent of damp moss, and the muffled sounds of nature set an eerie backdrop. For the 5 friends gathered around a flickering campfire. Excitement mixed with apprehension played in their eyes as tales of ghostly legends fluttered around them like moths drawn to the flame. Anna, the one who suggested the trip, leaned in closer to the warmth, her auburn hair shimmering in the firelight. "I heard there's an old Native American legend about this place. Something about a spirit that guards the forest." Her voice was tinged with thrill, yet beneath it lay a tremor that betrayed her own unease. Jason, her boyfriend, scoffed, ever the skeptic. "It's all just stories to scare the tourists," he said dismissively, poking the fire with a stick, sending a spray of embers into the night. Beside him, Sarah, Anna's best friend since childhood, wrapped herself tighter in a blanket, her eyes wide with fear. "Still, maybe we should be careful. You never know what's out there in the dark." "Come on, guys!" exclaimed Ethan, the jokester of the group, raising a half-empty beer can. "We're here to have fun, not scare ourselves silly." He raised the can higher, inviting a toast to adventure and escape. Luke, the quiet one, merely observed, his gaze often drifting into the shadows of the trees. He had joined the trip last minute, drawn more by the promise of solitude than camaraderie. Yet a strange pull, an undeniable curiosity, connected him to the woods as though he were seeking something unspoken. The night wore on, laughter interspersed with occasional glances over shoulders, as if the darkness beyond the campfire held more than trees and night creatures. The true catalyst of their night emerged when Anna revealed an old map she had found in her grandmother's attic. It was tattered and yellowed, hinting at an unknown cave hidden deep in the forest. "This," Anna announced, pointing to a marked location, "is where we need to go tomorrow. Imagine what we could find." Her eyes gleamed with excitement. "And what if we find an ancient curse?" Sarah quipped nervously, trying to mask her discomfort with humor. "Curse or treasure, it's worth checking out," Jason challenged, ever the adventurer, already plotting the route. The decision was made, and the promise of an adventure lingered in the air as they retired to their tents. But as the fire dimmed and silence fell, the forest seemed to breathe, and the shadows crept closer, as if welcoming old friends back into their fold. Dawn broke with a golden hue, its light piercing through the canopy. As the group prepared for their trek, the map, now creased and studied, guided them through the winding paths of the forest. Spirits high, they joked and teased each other, unaware of the watchful eyes that seemed to follow them. Veiled in branches and leaves, the forest grew denser as they ventured deeper, and time seemed to lose its grip. Hours passed unnoticed until they stood before the cave entrance, hidden behind a curtain of ivy and rock. Its mouth yawned wide, an ominous invitation into the Earth's secret heart. "Wow," Ethan whispered, the humor slipping from his voice, replaced by awe. "It's like something out of a movie." Anna led the way, clutching a flashlight, its beam slicing through the darkness. The cave was cool, the air ancient and still. As their lights danced over the walls, they discovered intricate carvings etched into the stone. These carvings depicted scenes of rituals and figures that seemed to come alive in the flickering light. "These must be the carvings from the legend," Anna breathed, her fingers tracing the patterns. "They tell a story." Luke, who had remained silent, spoke then, his voice reverent. "It's a warning. These figures, they're not just guardians, they're keeping something in." Silence followed his words, a collective unease settling over them like the dust at their feet. It was Sarah who noticed it first, a glinting object partially buried in the ground. Kneeling, she unearthed an old, intricately designed amulet. Its surface was adorned with unfamiliar symbols, and an unsettling energy emanated from it. "Maybe we should leave it be," Luke suggested, his intuition tingling with alarm. But Jason, eager to dismiss such superstitions, pocketed the amulet with a grin. "A souvenir of our adventure," he declared. As they retraced their steps to the surface, an oppressive silence enveloped the group. The forest no longer seemed welcoming. The shadows grew longer, and an unnatural chill seeped into their bones. The jovial spirit that had brought them there had dissipated, leaving behind a lingering tension. Back at the campsite, they tried to shake the foreboding sense that clung to them. Yet, the night brought with it a series of unexplainable events, a sudden wind that extinguished the fire. The feeling of being watched, distant whispers in the night carried on the breeze. Fear began to fracture their bonds, suspicion blooming like a dark flower in their midst. "Is this some sort of prank?" Sarah accused, her voice brittle with fear, looking at Ethan, whose humor had always been questionable. "This isn't funny, Ethan," Anna snapped, her usual calm fractured by an unease she couldn't name. "It's not me," Ethan protested, his own fear genuine, shadowing his eyes. The group retreated to their tents, unnerved, hearts pounding. But sleep was fleeting, haunted by dreams of ancient figures and the echo of whispered warnings. The dawn brought with it a terrible realization. Jason was missing. Panic spread through them as they searched frantically, calling his name, but only the echo of the forest answered. Anna's fear turned to anger, aimed at Ethan and his penchant for tricks. "Where is he, Ethan?" she demanded, her voice shaking with a mixture of rage and fear. "I swear, Anna, I don't know," Ethan defended, hands raised, the laughter gone from his eyes, replaced by guilt. Sarah and Luke, though skeptical of Ethan, couldn't help but feel the weight of something sinister pressing against their senses. It was Luke who noticed the trail, subtle and almost hidden, leading away from the campsite deeper into the forest. "We need to follow it," Luke urged, a certainty in his voice that silenced their arguments. Reluctantly they agreed, clinging to the hope that they would find Jason safe and sound, perhaps merely a victim of his own adventurous spirit. The path was treacherous, leading them into a part of the forest untouched by time, where the trees loomed like ancient sentinels guarding secrets long buried. As they ventured further, an oppressive energy filled the air, whispering promises of danger. It was near a clearing that they found Jason, or what was left of him. The sight was too much for Anna, and she fell to her knees, a scream trapped in her throat. His lifeless body was twisted, marked with symbols identical to those on the amulet. Sarah backed away, terror palpable, while Ethan stood frozen, the reality of their nightmare sinking in. Luke, though shaken, remained focused. He understood that they had awakened something ancient, something deadly, and their ignorance had cost them dearly. "This is your fault," Anna screamed, directing her fury at Ethan, tears streaking her face. "We should have left when we had the chance." "It's not my fault," Ethan retorted, his voice breaking, fear turning to anger. "It was Jason who took that thing." A tremor of anger and grief rippled through them, fracturing their unity. Yet, amidst the chaos, Luke remained a pillar of reason, urging them to return to the cave. He believed that returning the amulet might quell the spirit they had awakened. Though hesitant, desperation left them little choice. The journey back to the cave was fraught with unease, every snap of a twig a reminder of their mortality. Inside, the carvings seemed to pulsate with life. As Anna placed the amulet back where it was found, a chill swept through the air. "It's done," she whispered, hope mingling with despair. But the silence that followed was deafening, and for a moment they believed it had worked. Then the shadows began to move, creeping along the walls. They enveloped them in darkness. A low, guttural growl echoed through the cavern, the embodiment of the malevolent force. Panic ensued, a flurry of movement as they stumbled toward the exit, the air heavy with an impending doom. The shadows seemed alive, reaching out with spectral fingers. They tried to drag them back into the abyss. Luke, ever the protector, urged them on, his own fear swallowed by determination. But as they reached the cave's mouth, it was Sarah who stumbled, falling behind. Her scream pierced the air, a cry for help. But the shadows were relentless, devouring her in an instant. "Sarah!" Ethan yelled, reaching out in vain as they were forced to keep moving. escaping the cave, grief striking at their hearts with every step. Outside, the sunlight was harsh, an ironic contrast to the terror they had faced within. Only 3 remained now, and the weight of their loss hung heavily upon them. Anna, once vibrant, was now subdued, clinging to Luke. He bore the burden of their survival. Ethan, guilt-ridden and haunted by the deaths of his friends, was consumed by a resolve to make things right. They decided to return to civilization, to seek help, and warn others of the danger that lay in the heart of the forest. Yet, the forest had other plans. As they retraced their steps, the woods seemed to shift, paths changing as though the forest itself conspired against them. By nightfall, they were hopelessly lost, exhaustion and despair gnawing at their sanity. Anna, driven to her breaking point, collapsed. Tears marked trails down her cheeks. "It's over, isn't it?" she sobbed, defeated. "We can't give up," Luke insisted, his own hope dwindling yet unwilling to succumb. But the forest was merciless, and as darkness fell, the shadows returned, encroaching upon them once more. In that final moment, realization dawned upon Luke. Something had been left behind. The amulet was merely a trigger, not the key. Ethan, driven by a desperate bravery, stepped forward. "I'll distract it. You two run." Ethan's voice resonated through the darkness, firm and sure. In that moment, a curious calm descended over him, as though he had been preparing for this sacrifice all along. Anna fought against Luke's grip, her cry of "no" echoing through the old trees. But Luke understood the unspoken bond they all shared. He nodded to Ethan, then pulled Anna away, forcing her through the looming pines. While Ethan stepped forward, shouting a challenge at the unseen force that prowled the shadows. His voice, raw with both terror and defiance, wove itself into the forest's hollow heart, a clarion call to the malevolent presence stirring there. Each syllable he hurled into the darkness bought precious seconds for Anna and Luke. The monstrous roar that answered was both a promise of violence and a macabre acceptance of Ethan's offer. Tears glistened in Anna's eyes as she stumbled forward, her breath catching on sobs. She refused to look back. She couldn't bear to see Ethan stand alone. Luke held her steady, pressing forward through the labyrinth of trees. The branches reached out like skeletal arms, snagging their clothes, leaving threads of fabric behind as though the forest itself sought to claim them. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves made their hearts lurch. Fear spurred them faster. Time warped in that endless flight, hours stretching into eons. When at last the haunting silhouettes of trees receded, they caught sight of a distant glow, civilization's promise of safety. Staggering into a clearing, they collapsed, filling their lungs with cold, clean air. Soft street lamps illuminated a lonely road on the outskirts of a small town. The warm light washed over them, but neither felt truly safe. Their hearts still pounded with the echo of Ethan's last cry, and in their minds, the terrifying presence lingered. In the days that followed, the authorities combed the forest, searching for any sign of Ethan. They ventured into the cave's yawning mouth, flashlights sweeping over jagged walls covered in cryptic carvings. But all they found were unanswered questions, half-erased messages that seemed to whisper of an ancient power curled deep in the earth. No trace of Ethan, no footprints in the damp soil, no sign of the monstrous thing he'd confronted. Time marched on with cruel indifference. The tragedy became local legend, a cautionary tale told around campfires late at night. Anna and Luke tried to move forward, but they were forever changed. Their shared grief knitted them closer. Each day they clung to one another for solace. They spoke openly of what had happened, unafraid of the raised eyebrows and skeptical stares. Telling their story was all they could do to honor Ethan, and the others lost to that place. Years rolled by, and the forest grew wilder. Rumors swirled of a robed figure spotted at the cave's entrance, or of strange lights flickering among the pines on moonless nights. Still, no one dared to venture too far in, and those who did rarely returned with coherent memories. The ancient carvings remained, defiant and unreadable, the final word of an unfinished saga. Anna would sometimes awaken in the dead of night, heart pounding as wind chimes rattled on her porch. She would close her eyes and hear Ethan's voice, vibrant with laughter. Or was it a call from somewhere deep in the forest? She never could tell which it was, and perhaps she never truly wanted to know. The memory had become both comfort and curse, a fragment of him that lived on, beckoning her back to the edge of that twisted wood. Luke, now ever watchful, would place a gentle hand on her shoulder whenever she stirred in the darkness. He shared her nightmares and understood too well the silent dread that accompanied them. By day, they lived outwardly normal lives, but in the hush of evening, they were haunted by the knowledge of that place, of the friends they had lost, of the unspeakable force that dwelled there, waiting. Despite their better judgment, despite the fear etched into their very bones, Anna and Luke sometimes wondered if they owed it to Ethan to return. What if there was still a clue hidden among the stones, a vestige of him trapped between those ancient carvings and the pitch-black night? The idea gnawed at them, a phantom question that no amount of resolve could silence. For now, they stayed away, unwilling to feed the whispering darkness. They comforted themselves with the knowledge that Ethan's sacrifice had not been in vain, that because of him they had a chance to breathe, to hope, to love. Yet every gust of wind through the pines, every eerie half-sound in the dead of night, felt like the forest calling them back, daring them to test their courage against its unbreakable hold. And so the hollow remained, silent, foreboding, untouched by curious feet. Its gnarled boughs and dark hollows guarded the secrets that should never be disturbed. But the question lingered, somewhere in the swirling mists of memory and rumor, of what truly stirred beneath the earth, waiting for the unwary soul with enough bravery or foolishness to seek its hidden heart. The faintest echo of Ethan's laughter drifted on the night breeze, an ethereal reminder that in the face of ancient darkness, mortal bonds can burn brightly, but not without leaving scars. Even as the sun rose day after day over the quiet town and the watchful forest, the story was not truly over. For some secrets refused to sleep forever, and some friendships, forged in terror and sacrifice, defy even the most restless shadows. A new dawn promised both closure and danger, an invitation to return or to finally let go. And yet, in their dreams, Anna and Luke still stood at the forest's edge, hands intertwined, hearts pounding, the faint voice of their friend echoing through the canopy, urging them onward. There, in the hush before waking, they glimpsed the next chapter calling, an unspoken challenge poised on the threshold of the ancient wood, waiting to be answered.